welcome to the broadcast with Amanda, Shandy, and Colleen. My name is Colleen.
My name is Amanda.
And I'm Shandy.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Season 3, Episode 35, number 125. How is it going this week?
Very good. Like, every time you say the number, I'm always like, wow, so many episodes. That's so great.
I know.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that it's our third season. Like, I think about that sometimes, and it doesn't, like, really compute.
No.
But, like, we have been doing this for 3 seasons. It's crazy.
Yeah. I know. I feel like I have been through a lot of shit in the last 3 years that my life is just so different than when we started this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know that that's probably the same for you guys, too. So, just, it's crazy.
Definitely.
Yeah. And, like, a lot of, like, imperceptible ways, but it's, like, a lot of little tiny changes to, like, where I am today. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, it's pretty different.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. Like, I'm in a different house than when we started. I have a second child when we started.
Yeah. You have like, probably, you get the prize for the big ticket changes.
Yeah. That's true. Still, I am in a different apartment, though.
True. We're in a different apartment.
Yeah.
You had a different roommate when we first started.
I had a different roommate. Yeah.
I have a roommate.
Yeah. So see, those are all big ticket items.
And Gabby was so tiny when we started. I was thinking about that this morning because I was just struck by just how massive she is. And I was thinking about when we started and she was a tiny little kitten that would sit on my lap and she was so cute. And she would, like, I would be drying my underwear behind us in what is now my roommate's room recording, and she would be like, crazy acrobat little kitten, and now she's that's Fiona. I don't know if you can hear, but she is meowing outside my door.
Yeah, it is loud.
Girl. Yeah, she wants to snuggle.
I had bangs when we started. I don't have those anymore.
That's true. You did have bangs. Captain was much bigger than he is now.
He had the opposite trajectory.
Yeah, he was a good 3 pounds heavier.
Oh my goodness.
Slim and trim.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I couldn't keep any of our listeners straight, and now I've met some of them in person, so I actually know who they are.
Yeah.
Yes. Speaking of, tonight, Jay and Jack and Jay's mom, Cindy, and the boys and I all had dinner with Fallon's husband, Daryl.
What?
Oh.
Yeah,
That's
he was
awesome.
in town.
Nice.
He was in town for business, and we took him to the pit where Amanda has eaten. I don't know if, Shandy, you went. Did we go there last year? Amanda's been there. It's the barbecue place next to Boxcar, the barcade. So we took him there.
Very good. Good choice.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. It's funny because we were talking, and he is actually, I have my monthly breakfast tomorrow morning. Don't worry, breakfast has been ordered for everyone. In the morning, and I was, he was saying some of the places, because he works in education. He's like, yeah, and tomorrow I'm going to be at Duke, and I'm going to be at UNC Chapel Hill, and I'm going to be at this other school. I'm going to be at Campbell Law, and I was like, I am too. When are you going? Because I'm going to be there at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. He was like, okay, well, I'm not going to be there at 7. I was like, oh, all right. Well,
it's a bummer. You're going to miss out on a pretty sweet Panera tray.
Yeah, true. I was like, they have new pastries, and they're amazing. I really like their new pastries.
What kind of pastries?
They used to have, like, the Danishes and stuff. Now they've, like, kind of switched it up where they've got, like, these like muffin, like Danishes. It's like the same, like, Danish principle, but they're, like, in muffin form. So it's like muffins with, like, the fruit on top and, like, the stuff inside. And
ooh, nice. That sounds very yummy.
I will Instagram. I Instagrammed it last month, I think, but I will Instagram it again tomorrow morning, which I know will be 3 days ago for all of you people. So if you happen to catch it, that's fine. I did it because I promised it to my girls. But I felt bad because when I first got there, I was kind of in not a sour mood, but I had a kind of a bad day. A bad 2 days, rather, an unexpected 2 days. And I was kind of just somewhat stressed out when we first got there. So I felt like I wasn't like really me at first. And then I had a beer and then I was me. And so I feel like now I'm going to explain it because we're just going to go right into this.
Let's do it.
So yesterday morning I went to, and this is a callback to, there's two things I want to talk about in this episode. And they are both callbacks to a previous episode from last year, at 2.35 from April 6th, I'm Not Eating That, which I do believe might be one of my top 2 favorite episodes that we have ever done. In case anybody is wondering, the title came from that really gross voicemail it was our very first video that we ever did.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was fun. I love that episode. I talk about my mail truck catching fire. I asked listeners for an advice about something, and here. Okay, so yesterday morning, I had my just regular yearly checkup at the OBGYN, and I get there at 8:30. It's an 8:40 appointment. I do my vitals. I'm sitting in the exam room at 8:38, so it's not even 8:40 yet, and I wait, and I'm waiting, and it's like 9:20, and I hear the doctor in the room next to me, and I'm like, oh, great, here she comes. Like, she must be me next. And then I don't hear her anymore, and then it's 9:40, and I'm like, I have been in here for a freaking hour. Like, what is going on?
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, my doctor's like that.
See,
what?
So mine, I usually see another doctor, and it is never like that. Like my 8:40 appointment, the doctor that I generally see, I would have been out of there by 9:00, maybe 9:05.
Well, and like if they're running behind, that's one thing. But why take you in and make you wait basically like naked?
Well, I was actually naked with
no like reading material or anything.
Right. Thankfully, I had my phone, but so I was completely naked except for like the thing that opens in the front and then the thing that goes across your lap, right? Because it was my yearly exam, and I had an abnormal Pap smear last year, so I've got to do the Pap smear every year now. Like I had one glorious period where I got to get it I got 3, to go the 3-year period. I'm like, oh, for the rest of my life, I'm gonna have to do it every year. So. At this point, I'm kind of like getting like antsy. Finally, at like 10 o'clock or a little before 10, I poke my head out. So I'm trying to keep it so
keep
that
yourself
my boobs aren't like poking out, and that because I had to hold both because they're not connected. So I'm trying to hold the door open with my elbow and like go out there with the like thing so my boobs aren't out and my vag isn't showing. And then stick my head out, and I'm like, excuse me? I just wanted to make sure nobody didn't forget about me. So, and then they said, oh, she had to go over to the hospital, and, because she's, I guess.
Right, but like nobody got
to tell you that.
Exactly. And that was my thing. Like, I love her. She delivered Alex. I think she's great. That's why I agreed to see her for my yearly checkup instead of the woman that I usually see. I was like, okay, but why didn't anybody tell me? Like, Dr.
She got called away, emergency at the hospital. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I had
please stop feeling like you need to sit here with the fucking gallons that open in the front. Like, we're sorry.
Exactly. Well, it was like it's a half gown, like a half thing, and then just the thing on goes on your lap.
It's a paper robe.
Yeah. It was a paper fucking club shirt. So
Oh, yours doesn't go all the way? Like mine?
Nuh-uh. It goes
I feel like they go down to like my knees.
Nope. Mine
I feel like it's a really good way to save a little bit of like the material, the paper or whatever it's made out of, but then don't make people wait for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Right.
Mine goes down to your hips.
You're sitting there in your paper bolero.
Yeah. No. Mine literally goes down to your hips, and then you have to just put the like blanket version one on top of like your crotch area.
So I know in France they don't have that cover up. You're just there.
Sit there naked.
You're just there.
Hope it's on a cold day.
So I'm sitting there. I'm getting anxious because I really feel like I need to get to work at a reasonable time. And they're like, she's going to be another 20 minutes. Do you want somebody else? And I was like, yeah, can I have somebody else? So about 5 minutes later, somebody else comes to the room, and it's my doctor actually who I usually see. And she's like, I hope you don't mind. I was like, oh my God, no, I love you. Like, please, I don't care. Stick your hands up my vagina. I don't care. Let's do this. So like scratch away. And like she was great. She feels my boobs and she's like, "Are you still nursing? Because your boobs are all veiny like those nursing boobs." And I was like, "Thank you very much. I'm only nursing one time a day still." Then she does the pap smear and she's like feeling around and she's like, "So you have an IUD, right?" Because I got the Marina in last summer. And I was like, "I do." And she goes, "Okay." Feeling around. She's like, "Dr. T cut the strings really short." And I was like, "I don't know. Like, she cut the strings, but I don't know how short she cut them." She's like, "Okay." She goes, "Is there anything like special about this?" And I was like, "I don't know. Look at my chart. Like, I have no idea." So she feels around some more and she goes, "So I can't feel the strings. I think we're going to have to do an ultrasound." So they bring in the wand, which have you, either of you ever had to have the ultrasound via wand?
No.
I've never had an ultrasound.
Okay.
Knock on wood.
Because she's looking around. She's like, "I don't see it anywhere. It should be here." She's looking around. And then she goes, "Oh, but your uterus is beautiful." And I was like, "Oh, thank you so much. You've never seen it like in its natural habitat." So she's like, "Okay, well, we're gonna have to do some pregnancy tests because it's not here, and we're gonna have to send you to get an X-ray." So thankfully, all the pregnancy tests were negative. So at this point, I'm like, "All right, well, I'm gonna go at the end of the day because the X-ray place, the radiology place she sent me actually has an office that's right by the boys' school." So I was like, "Well, I've been out of work for it's like I'm 2 hours late at this point. I'll go at the end of the day." So. And I'll just explain to everybody in the office. I'm like, it's me. I'm going to tell them exactly why I've got to leave early. So I go into work and I'm like, "So my IUD is missing."
Missing in action.
So I go to the radiology place. I get the X-ray. And you know where that motherfucker is? It is.
Oh, God.
It is above my spleen. It is by my ribs. It's not in my ribs. But it's like,
how does it get there?
So it must
a uterus doesn't go up that high, yo.
It sure doesn't. It perforated through my uterus and migrated up. Now
that's gotta be not great for your insides.
Well, here's the thing. So about a month and a half ago, that same week that I was like depressed the week right before that week that I was like kind of depressed and I had some really bad stomach problems. I just assumed I had a virus, right? Like and that was one of the catalysts, that and feeling down, that I was like, okay, well, I'm just not going to drink for a little while. And it kind of went away. And then about a week ago, I just started with horrible stomach, or 2 weeks ago, a week ago, horrible stomach pains going across the top of my stomach. Like that I actually last Thursday or Friday Googled stomach pains and early signs of stomach cancer. Cause I was like concerned that I had something I literally Googled, like, do I have some kind of cancer? Because like I couldn't eat a couple of days. I told them at work, I was like, it doesn't feel like gas because I don't have gas. It hurts. But I came to the conclusion, because it was actually particularly bad last Wednesday, and I drank 2 Wednesdays in a row, and, I drink when we podcast. So I thought, okay, well, I haven't been drinking a lot. I've been eating kind of healthy, but the last 2 weeks, I drank a lot on Tuesday. I didn't eat that as healthy as I usually do. So, let me see if fixing my diet and then, not drinking for another couple of days will do anything. And it didn't do anything. Like it still hurt. To the point where, 3 days later, I was Googling, do I have cancer? So
oh my God.
I put it together at that point. I was like, well, that has to be where this pain is coming from. Because again, I thought that maybe it was gastritis based on the symptoms after Googling it, but I wasn't like gassy. So they actually they gave me a copy of my X-ray on a CD-ROM, which I don't have a CD-ROM drive anymore.
Right, who has that anymore?
I was like, who the fuck does this? So I've got to find a CD-ROM drive. I think we have our old laptops at work from like 2014, 2013 that still have it. So I'm going to pull one down tomorrow and charge it up and then pull the X-ray up and then screen cap it and send it to everybody, because I looked at it. It is crazy. Like, it is clearly like an image of like right below my rib cage, and the IUD is there. So, okay, at that point I'm like, oh my God, this is a story, right? But okay, it's going to be a great story, because who else has, this happen between 1 and 13 women out of 1,000 have this happen to them.
Oh my God.
So this morning, they called me in the morning and had me come in and talk to me about like my options. And essentially it was decided pretty much that they're going to go in next Tuesday. So I'm going to be a little loopy next Tuesday, maybe when we record. I'm probably going to be sober, sadly, but you're probably going to think that I'm not. But...
So it's an outpatient procedure that you just go.
Yeah, so they're going to do the laparoscopy or whatever it's called.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Through my belly button and search and pull it down, and I'm going to have to go under anesthesia. And she said I should be fine afterwards, but I'll just be sore because I had a little probe going up there.
Yeah, and your belly button.
Yeah, and she was like, and just so you know, they're probably going to ask for permission to go in on 2 different points in your abs if it's floated around and we can't find it. Like, well, but at this point I'm still thinking it's a great story. And then they call me and they're like, so here's how much it's going to cost. And at this point I'm thinking it's like when my lipoma got removed and it was just an outpatient procedure. I paid my special copay of whatever it was, and I was over and done with. Nope. I'm going to meet my deductible and probably most of my out of pocket. And then I started crying.
Oh, right, but it's necessary surgery. You can't just leave it in there.
Yeah, which is...
So why is your insurance then not covering it?
It'll cover it, but it won't cover it at 100% until I hit my out of pocket. So thankfully, I have pretty good insurance.
Got any other procedures you got to get that you've been putting off getting done? I mean, if you're going to hit your deductible this early in the year, might as well.
And that's exactly what she said, because she was like, and then my doctor was like, so if you want to have another baby, it'll be free.
Oh my God, only in America.
I know, right?
That sucks.
But she was like, everything will be, at least you're covered for the rest of the year. And I'm thinking, well, what else can I get done? Can't get LASIK. Yeah. Totally would have done that. Can't get that. I have a hernia, which I might get fixed now because why not? YOLO.
Why not? Yeah. If it's going to be free.
Yeah. I know. I'm like, what else can happen? Can I break something this year? Like, this would be the perfect time to have everything go wrong. I might get orthotics because orthotics are really fucking expensive.
They are very expensive.
Yeah, they are. So
you could take up a dangerous sport. You could take up skateboarding.
Exactly. I might do all these crazy things this year because I've got 9 months to go live it up. Yep. So,
oh my God! Again, only in America.
Yeah, I know.
So messed up.
I know. So my OBGYN though was somewhat cool in that, she came in and she goes, the good news is you're not accidentally pregnant. I've only seen this happen once before, and the woman didn't realize it until she was 18 weeks pregnant, and we had and then she explained how it probably perforated. If I want to do it again, this is what she would do. She would make sure that my anatomy was, how did she word it? She was provided a friendly environment for it because I have a slightly tilted uterus. So she goes, sometimes the way that it places, once in a while, your anatomy is not friendly for it. We would put it in next time and confirm it via 3D ultrasound to make sure it was in place. I would have several checks to make sure that it was still there. And then, before I was discharged. So I would get the advanced IUD treatment. And I was
my goodness.
And she goes through this thing and she apologized, and she didn't put it in. She's still apologizing it happened to me. And I was like, I'm not mad at anybody. I understand the risks of birth control in general. There's always a risk of side effects. I don't have sepsis from it. I don't have really bad complications. I'm not mad at anybody. She goes, oh, I'd be mad if I were you.
Well, I do feel like this is a ripe time to just remind the listeners about how the birth control for men was abandoned after
because of too many symptoms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And that was just a pill.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what's going on with me. My AUD is currently under my ribs, in my spleen area.
Oh my God.
Which I only found out because, to add insult to injury, let me read to you, to finish this out, the report from the radiologist. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Now remember, they're just looking to find the IUD. Okay. Findings. IUD identified projecting over the lateral margin of the left upper quadrant, closely approximating region of the splenic flexure. Okay, cool. Number 2, moderately prominent stool throughout non-dilated loops of colon without evidence for obstruction correlates with signs of constipation. Nobody fucking asked them.
Butt out.
Nobody asked them to, like, x-ray me and then tell me that I'm literally full of shit. That offended me out of everything that had to happen.
Everything I've been through today.
I was like, why you gotta point out the poop for? And I did poop last night. Thank you very much.
Remedy that without having to hit your deductible.
Exactly. You know what? I'm going to get colon cleanses for the next 9 months because it's going to be motherfucking free. Because I have proof now that it's medically necessary.
Right. Oh, man.
Oh my God. Oh.
That is not at all what I was expecting, because when you sent us that episode last night, and I, like, of course couldn't remember it because I can't remember anything, and I clicked on it and I read the description, I was like, oh shit, like something burned down, like something went on with the post office, the poor postal worker.
Yeah, I thought it was Ricardo, or what was his name?
Roberto.
No. Like, your house caught on fire. I don't know.
Well, Roberto won't even make eye contact with me anymore, which makes me really sad. But no. That part is actually, I might have to save for next time. This was that was because I asked the listeners to give me their IUD recommendation, like.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah, so that was why I asked about this. And the other part was, with the male part, is, well, I guess actually this is somewhat quick, and then I can follow up with it later. When we, on Sunday afternoon, Zach and Alex and I were at home, and all of a sudden there was a boom so loudly that it shook the house. And, I ran outside because the last time I heard a boom that shook the house, it was the fucking mail truck on fire. So, I ran out and I can't find it. And Zach is, really kind of freaking out because he's never felt something like that before. Alex is, happily in his high chair, la, 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 la. And Alex, I couldn't figure it out anywhere. And there was a thread on my neighborhood Facebook group and on our next door about it. It's like a huge mystery because they felt it at the state park next to us. They felt it in the neighborhoods across the street. People were summarizing that it was the quarry, or there's a new school that's being built that they were blasting there. But and I was satisfied after that. I was like, oh, that's probably what it was. But the groups that were doing the blasting for both of those came out saying that they weren't doing work on Sunday afternoon.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So then no one knows what it is. No one's owning up to it.
Nobody knows what it was. It wasn't an earthquake or anything. Nobody's owning up to it. I mean, and it had to have been at least 5 square mile or whatever, because the park is a mile and a half from us, and there were people in the neighborhoods that adjoin it, and somebody went and commented that they were in the park at the time. They heard it but couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Across the street, on the Linwood Grill side, the neighborhoods right behind that said that they heard it. It was when I say it shook the house, it felt like somebody like when we lived at our old place and they would do the quarry blasting every day, every few days. It felt like that, but nobody is owning up to it. So,
jeez, that's scary.
It's a mystery. It is. It's not that it's. I mean, Zach finds it scary. I'm convinced it's aliens. So I don't know what to say.
And that doesn't scare you? That scares me a little bit. That scares me a touch.
Well, I
a little more than nervous.
You guys see the video of Sean Hannity on air a couple of days ago at the time of this airing where there's a fly on his neck and it's like crawling up and down. And at first, like, I was like, maybe he didn't feel it because, it was on his shirt, but then it goes on like the fleshy part. And it's, kind of creepy. And I love the comments because the first comment that I saw was my first thought was, it's like it was wearing Edgar in a suit, like an Edgar suit.
Like an Edgar.
You guys know what that's from, right?
Men in Black, yeah.
Men in Black.
Yes, for sugar water.
Yes.
I'm excited for the new one.
Me too.
Looks pretty good, actually.
Yeah. I like Chris Hemsworth, so I'm excited.
And I like Tessa Thompson. Is that her name?
Tessa Thompson, thank you.
I love her.
Tessa Thompson as Charlotte from Westworld.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that fly thing first made me think of Dolores from Westworld.
Ah.
See? But it's all the same. It all comes back full circle. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the moral of the story here is Sean Hannity is either an alien or a robot.
And that poor alien. Of all the suits to pick.
Unless that alien wanted to pick that suit.
That's true. Maybe it accentuates his hips. You don't know.
Does.
Maybe he feels like his butt looks good in that Sean suit. We don't know. Who are we to judge?
Who are we to judge? I'm really sorry that I talked for so long. How are you guys doing?
Good. I had something happen to me yesterday that it was just like so typically like when women complain about men, like this was like the tableau. I went out for a drink with a friend who I haven't seen for a long time, like a couple of weeks, and we were catching up, and we were like at this like sort of outside like beer garden part of the place that we were at, and there are like pretty big tables, so you could sit like 6 people at these tables. So we're at one end of the table and the table like empties up. So the rest of it's empty. And we're like engrossed in conversation, talking about like her breakup and like very personal things. And anyone that looked at us could see that we're just having this like one-on-one conversation. And behind us, there were some like couches kind of. And this dude had been sitting on the couch and then he like went to the bathroom or went to the bar or something and came back and somebody else had been sitting in his spot, but there were still like 4 other spots on the couches. Mm-hmm. And so so we're like right next to that. So he comes over to our table and is like, oh, like I got up, but somebody took my spot. Is it okay if I sit down here? Again, a little bit weird because there's literally like half the couch and 2 like side chairs, but like, sure, of course, like you can sit here. There's plenty of room. So we tell him that he can sit down. So he starts sitting down and he's like facing us, right? But we're facing each other because we're talking. And he like starts to tell us about how he's visiting from LA and stuff. And I'm like, oh, dude like wants to talk to us. So I'm super irritated, but in my nicest way. I just like kind of, again, I'm like, my whole body is towards my friend across the table from me, but I kind of like look over, he's on my right. I look over and I'm like, hey, so yeah, like, so we were just actually catching up, and turn back to my friend. And for me, that's like the nicest way that I can say, we don't want to talk to you. Like we're having conversation.
Yeah, respectful. Yeah. Yeah. Polite, I think. Yeah.
And it totally like goes over his head and he keeps talking and I'm like so irritated. And then my friend is like, yeah, we were actually just having like a really intimate conversation, just the 2 of us. And then he's like, you guys just wanted to talk. And we're like, yeah, like, thanks. Sorry. Yeah, thanks. What?
Said that.
And so then it's like really weird. And he's still sitting there. And again, there's like ample room behind us, but whatever. He's still sitting there and his body is still sort of like turned towards us.
He's just listening.
And now he's just listening. And this isn't the worst part, because when he was still trying to make small talk with us and he mentioned that he was from LA, he was like, oh, and you said you were going to LA. Because my friend, when he was over in the couches, had like mentioned how she was going to LA in a couple of weeks.
So he was like, eavesdropping.
He was eavesdropping over there. And now he's like tried to insert himself. And so he's still just like sitting there awkwardly, kind of like turned towards us. And it takes us a minute to be like, and then, like, again, we're talking about, like intimate things. And so finally, like, the 2 of us, we just kind of, like, go back to our conversation and it's just like, well, fuck that. And finally, after like at least 15 to 20 minutes, he like finishes his drink and then gets up and leaves. And we're just like, the fuck? And actually, before that happened, she and I went back up to the bar to order. So when we're up at the bar, we're like, seriously? Like, did that just happen? Like, I felt kind of mean. And my friend's like, no, I'm glad you said that. Cause like, what? Why do you assume that like that we want to talk to you when we're very obviously having a conversation, just the two of us?
Right. And I think that this is a good time to teach some people out there that might be curious as to, let's educate, why that was not okay. As Shandy just said, it was very clear that they were involved in a conversation. It wasn't like they were making a little chit chat that you could come up. Like, it's like if you know two friends that are in the middle of an intimate conversation, you probably wouldn't walk in and like be like, hey, so I'm here. Let's talk about me.
Seriously. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't like, and that's the thing is like, there literally was a part of me that felt bad. And then the other part of me, I was like, dude,
because you're a nice person.
Right. It's like, well, but body language, like there was nothing to indicate that it was safe to approach or that approaching would be welcomed.
Right. And when I said you could join our table, like that didn't mean, and we want to talk to you. Like, because like, for example, when my friend and I arrived, there had been like other people at the table at the other end. Mm-hmm. And so we also asked them, do you mind if we sit down at this part of the table? Like, but that didn't mean like, and we're going to now talk to you.
Right.
And like demand your time.
And even if he couldn't understand social cues and still said something, once you guys said the first time, hey, we're having a conversation, it's pretty obvious. I mean, you kind of spelled it out.
That's what I thought. Yeah. And simple. That's when I was like, oh my God, I can't. It's very frustrating when people can't pick up on like body language, social cues. Like I am being very clear.
Right. And it was like, again, if you can't, you still said it.
Right. Well, then just the point that then you had to do something where you felt like your morals were being compromised, that like you felt uncomfortable because you felt like you were being rude because the first attempt didn't land. It's like,
right. And I just
know everyone's having a bad time.
Right. No, I wanted to tell the guy, but again, didn't want to be mean, but I wanted to tell the guy, like, honestly, my advice would be like, go inside directly to the bar. Like that's usually where people hang out when there's a higher chance of like, just like the random person who's here on vacation or here on a work trip or whatever. Like that's the place
where people
you want to go
if they want to be approached.
Exactly.
This is where it comes back to, in some small measure, I kind of blame like the rom-coms that make that okay.
Totally.
Fair.
I mean, that's all part of the apparatus. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Where it's like,
but like
you too can get your next girlfriend from just serendipitously sitting at the same table as she does.
And interrupting her very intimate conversation with a friend.
Right.
Obvious intimate conversation, yes.
It was so weird. But then anyway, so we were just like totally astounded that this happened. And I was like, well, I have something to talk about on the podcast.
I like how both of us thought this week, we're having this thing happen. This is going to be great to talk about.
Yeah, man. Wish I could say the same.
That's all right. I'm sure at some point you're going to outdo us.
Yeah.
With great stories.
Exactly. I'll have a story, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, I mean, do you want to, though? Because it means that you've had, like, a bad experience. So
that is true.
She could have a super awesome experience.
So I suppose count my blessings.
Yeah.
No, next week, Amanda could come to us and be like, so I was at the bar, and this dude wanted to sit with us, and I said, sure. And then he left me alone. It was great.
It was great.
Like you do.
Mm-hmm. Like you do.
Like, I get it. Like, so he's in town from LA. I don't know why, because I fucking didn't ask because I didn't want to talk to him. But he's here for, for business or for pleasure or for whatever reason. He's here by himself. He went out to a bar at like, dinner-ish time. He's having a drink. Like, okay, so I don't know. Step one, bring a book. Like,
or your phone.
Or your phone. Like, you carry around a tiny computer with you all day long that's just there to entertain you when you're bored.
Exactly.
Very true. Or like go to an area where it looks like people are not engrossed in their own conversation. Go at the bar. You can talk to the bartender. Like they're literally paid to sort of provide that kind of rapport. Like
yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And then make sure you tip them.
And then make sure you tip them. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, that was my thing.
Shandy, that's frustrating.
That is frustrating.
And annoying. Above all, it's annoying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you handled it very well. I feel like I have to remember the terminology you ladies used so I could employ it the next time, or if that ever happens to me, because that's
apparently, yeah. If you tell someone that you're catching up and point to like you and the person, apparently that doesn't work. So you have to be more direct. We're having an intimate conversation, just the two of us.
Yes, apparently. And I think using the word intimate, I feel like can be it can be obviously discouraging to someone who just wants to make casual conversation.
I mean, which he knew because he had been eavesdropping on our conversation, as evidenced by his comment about LA. Like he knew all of the contents of our conversation.
Also, you never let on that you're eavesdropping.
No,
you never make that clear. That's just like a private thing that you do with your own personal ears. And no one else has to know about it.
Unless it's really good, and then you take it to Twitter.
Right. Then you tell other people that are not there with you. Right. It's a your ears environmental thing. And then you use your fingers or your mouth and you share it later with other people not there.
Exactly.
That's how you eavesdrop.
Yeah, we should make a guide.
How you eavesdrop. Episode title.
Yep. Listening in the wild.
Listening in the wild. Write that down.
Sly listening.
Sly listening.
Sly listening. Now I like
what not to do while eavesdropping.
Yeah.
God.
Ear shade.
Ear shade.
Anyway.
Oh man. Yeah, so that's all I got. Did you do anything fun this weekend, Amanda?
I had a very busy weekend. I don't know if any of it is terribly like fun story, but yeah, it was a big weekend of socializing, which is probably why I'm so like tired now, because it was just like nonstop having to talk to people. Hi, buddy. Yeah, so we had some friends. Their daughter turned 1 year old, so we went up to Washington Heights to celebrate with her. Fun. And on the way, some friends of friends are moving to China in a couple weeks.
Wow.
So they were having a going away party same day. So we're like, oh great, we'll pop off there on the way up. They had it at like a barcade bar. So hang out, have a beer, play some Pac-Man, and then go to a baby party. So
nice.
Really fun. And then the next day we had brunch with one of Daniel's friends that's an actress that's in New York for pilot season, which I thought was interesting because you always hear pilot season and you think like LA and like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And apparently there's a very big pilot season here in New York now that so many shows shoot on location here. So she lives in LA and is here for like the spring doing that. So we met up with her and like walked around Prospect Park. Oh, but this is kind of fun. So while we were sitting, I love how when I just like come up with a story like midstream. Just go with it, guys. While we were sitting at the restaurant, we were seated at the bar because the restaurant we went to for brunch was like really tiny. So we're seated at the bar and we're like facing this big bay window. And it was St. Patrick's Day. So all of a sudden, like a parade is going by this random side street and like turning onto like the main drag that the bar was on. It was like a corner spot. And like, it was a long ass parade. Like,
that's awesome.
Like, it was like a good 20 minutes. It was like, and I don't know how any other way to say this, but it was a very like small town suburbs level parade. Okay. So you had, your marching band and you had every child scout troop and the police department and the fire department and I don't know, someone's dance school and like the old school cars and the fire truck, like they had everything. This parade had everything.
I marched in a St. Patrick's Day parade in my local hometown when I was in junior high of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like it was really fun. Just
Nice.
We're like, they're still going. They're still going.
That's great.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then we had some friends from Marist that were in town visiting some other family. And so they're like, are you around? Like, can we swing through and like hang out? Yeah. So it was like so much talking and so much hanging out.
Oh, that's
really fun. Talking that you wanted to be doing.
It's true. Everyone was someone invited into the conversations. There were no
yes. No,
there was no shady eavesdroppers. It was all really good. All intentional conversers.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, that sounds like really fun. I think I went geocaching with Zach this weekend. We found
that's fun. That's a good bonding activity.
Yeah. So I scouted them out actually on Friday. Geocaches locally that were specifically like kid friendly, where they had like treasures or toys or something, in the box for kids. So we did that. Okay, so we did one on Saturday because it happened to be at the playground. That we were at, and I kind of did that like as a way to warm him up. And then on Sunday we had 3 of them that we were going to do, but he got all tired after the second one. It was like, I want to go back to the car, and we had only walked 0.3 of a mile, but whatever.
Little legs.
So exactly. But he found two treasures, which he's actually cool. One of them was, those little mazes where you like, put the ball like and you got to get it.
Yeah, I love those.
Yeah, so one of them was that, and it was like a Peter Cottontail version of it. So he actually really liked that because he's, knows Peter Cottontail from the books and school. And the second thing was a Cat in the Hat keychain.
Oh, that's so cool. Fun.
And he loves him some Cat in the Hat. So he was like so into that. And like he actually this morning he was like, can we take the keychain part off of it so I can just play with the Cat in the Hat figure? And I was like, no. So it was really fun.
So then do you just leave something else?
We did. Back when we were doing the potty training thing, if he had a day without pooping his pants, and they were infrequent for a very long time. We bought, to Jay's credit, Jay bought him a giant pack of these little itty bitty Thomas the Train mini trains, and it was like they were very small, and it's like they came in individual packages within the pack. And it's just different versions of each of the trains, right? So like collector's versions or whatever, like for 5-year-olds. So Zach, opened up his fair share, and he had doubles, triples, quadruples of several of them. So before we left, we went through and we took out the ones that had multiple and put them in little baggies. And I said, okay, so we're going to have to give, these, you're going to take treasures that other little boys and girls left, and you're going to leave these for, boys and girls that will find them in the future. So we put them in baggies. I still have a whole bunch actually in my purse because we only got through 2 of them.
That's so
great.
Cool.
Yeah, it was really cute.
Little treasure hunt.
Exactly. Well, it's like a great way to teach, like an easy way to teach sharing and donating and like giving.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's not a birthday. It's not Christmas. It's just like giving because it's fun.
Yeah. And I thought that he was going to have a tough time with it, but he was actually okay. I think because he really liked the stuff that he got, that he's still been playing with them. And I'm glad that, there are people out there that think about this, like, giant worldwide game for adults and to do ones that are aimed for kids, because the first one we found had a dragon on top of it, and it had all these like kids games inside of it. So Zach and I then, for finding the next one, we played this whole game with his imagination of where could the dragon be hiding, and there was like a down tree, and we were like, oh my god, did the dragon knock that down trying to find the next treasure? So we had a really good time with it.
Nice. That's good.
That's really cool.
I like it.
Yeah. I'm sorry. This first 50 minutes of this episode has just been me talking a whole lot.
Oh, we just talked too. I did forget to mention that I did my first shift as a volunteer at the Museum of Natural History.
Oh, I saw that.
What did you do?
So the reason that I chose this place to volunteer at is in part because they have a bunch of different things that you can do, and they're like super chill, and they treat their volunteers really well. And so like to sort of like ease into it, because I am not an expert in natural history, I just worked at the gift shop, and it's like 3-hour shifts. And basically they're like, you know, they sell more if somebody is in there. Otherwise the people like would go to the front desk with whatever they want to purchase. But you spend most of the time just kind of sitting there. Like sometimes people come through, you talk to them, but there's a lot of downtime. So they were like, just bring a book. So it's just like 3 hours to mostly read and then make a few sales. And actually the last couple that came through, like right before my shift was ending, was a couple from France. So
awesome.
Yeah. So I got to talk to them in French, and they, you know, were just there visiting. So I'm sure they had like a lot of questions and stuff for me.
I am sure that the last thing they expected to visit Honorary was to talk to somebody in the museum gift shop in French. Well,
because they were like looking around in the gift shop, and I eavesdropped in the not creepy way, because we were just in the same little room,
right?
And I heard them, and so I said to them like, "Oh, are you French?" And so then we started talking, and they were explaining, you know, their trip and everything. But they said, they were like, "Oh, it's a good thing we weren't saying anything bad."
It's like, "Oh, this museum sucks."
Or like, I don't know, like Frank and I will sometimes say like, just like inappropriate, like you get comfortable, a little too comfortable. And like, sometimes I'll say things in a more public setting that I wouldn't say if I was saying it in English. Right. Joke with each other in a certain way. Like it might be a little risque or just inappropriate. And then you're like, oh shit, like the people at the table next to us are French and just heard me talking about like how we're, I don't know, had sex this morning or something, you know, like that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. But they were not talking about anything like that.
Oh, bummer.
Too bad.
Yeah, maybe next time. We'll see.
Gosh, how do I transition into talking about Leaving Neverland now?
I think we just have to take a hard turn.
All right. Let's just we'll just take that hard turn. And now we're going to start talking about Finding Neverland, I guess.
No, not Finding Neverland.
Oh, shit. Leaving Neverland.
I mean, we could talk about that. I mean, that's kind of not what we built this episode to be, but...
So, Johnny Depp, man, before we knew he was all sorts of trouble. But, okay, so, Leaving Neverland, how do we start?
Well, we got some feedback about it, so do we want to read the feedback and then, like, use that as a springboard?
Yeah, I think we could do that. Let's just kick it off with some feedback. And for the first time in a very long time, my notes are 2 pages because I took a lot of notes watching Finding Neverland.
Good for you.
Leaving Neverland.
I didn't take any notes, which is probably going to be problematic when we come to really discuss it.
Don't worry, because as I was watching it, like, there wasn't anything that I had forgotten. So.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, like, I didn't take notes either, but it's pretty seared in my memory.
Okay, so emails then, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so our first email is from JP, and ironically, as of today that we're recording, which is a Tuesday, it is JP's birthday. So, happy birthday, JP.
Birthday.
So, JP says, I wanted to write in and give you my thoughts. There are 2 points I think are worth discussing. 1, first of all, I believe the claims. I feel one item people fail to touch upon is MJ was arrested and went through the process. Similar to those who are wrongfully convicted and released years later, the fact that we had MJ, he was in court. If all these claims were true, I feel this is a great example of our imperfect system. Again, assuming he did it, the system, which should work, should have found him guilty of these crimes. However, he was able to walk out a free man. Item number 2. I hear how many people question or blame the parents. I'm sure his influence and appeal as a celebrity allowed him to also manipulate the parents into a feeling of trust. He would work his way into the family to the point where he was a part of that family. This allowed him to gain the trust and distance himself as being viewed as a stranger. We do this all the time with our kids and members of our family. I'm sure those of us with kids wouldn't hesitate to let them spend the night at an uncle or aunt so-and-so. By no means am I defending the parents, though, as I also ask, where was the one adult in MJ's staff who would have stepped forward and said, hey, why not let the kids sleep in a different room? JP.
The first point with he got away with it, I think it was just money. Like, and the fact that everybody wanted, like, they wanted him to not be guilty.
I think it's money, and I think it was the fact that all those kids were afraid to come forward, that they were conditioned, and they had a lot on the line to come forward. So I think, when it's hard to get, I think the fact that, they just couldn't get enough people to testify, and because he is who he is, that, like a jury of your peers, when you are a celebrity of that caliber, you have no peers.
Yeah. Which, as we found out, him having no peers like that was another way that he emotionally manipulated these children and the families, which brings us to number 2 in JP's points, that, at least in my opinion, and maybe, so I watched the first part twice, and I have to say, upon second viewing, I really, like, the first time I watched it, I was kind of angry I know it was a different time then, but I was kind of angry, like, with the parents, like, really, like, he was still a grown-up, and you actually, like, it's made so clear when you hear Wade say, like, his grown man penis was in my 7-year-old mouth, and it's like, that's right, because he was 7 years old. You weren't leaving a 15-year-old with a 35-year-old or 33-year-old or a 30-year-old, however he was, like, they were 7, like, that's crazy. And then the second time I watched it, like, I listened more to, like, the parents, and I just, like, felt more sorry for them about how they were clearly women who, and men, the grandparents that were there, like, clearly the mothers and the fathers were vulnerable themselves because they had other things going on, and that just goes, again, to show, like, what predators do is they find the weakest people and go for it. And I think that Fiona or Gabby agrees with me.
Yeah, Fiona's got a lot to say about this. Mm-hmm.
Yes, as the older cat, she has a lot of wisdom. No, I like my initial thought when watching this, and I'm sure we'll like get to like there's the Michael Jackson of it all, and then there's just like the overall like a question of abuse of it all. Mm-hmm. But in the Michael Jackson of it all portion of this, like I was just sort of knocked on my ass in that like I had this realization of like we all knew this. Like we all knew growing up, like I sort of remember like hearing weird things about Neverland. And I remember hearing, like just like whispers about little boys that were like living there. And we all knew, but we just sort of like filtered it out in a way and just sort of forgot. And I think for me, and I will say this is in part because of my age, our age, like we were also children when this was happening. So didn't have the same perspective as we do now. Mm-hmm. But I think for me then like growing up and even until like he died, there was, God, Fiona's being really loud.
That's okay. She is really angry.
Yep. She has a lot to say.
You know what, Fiona? Child rape makes me angry too. Manipulation and predatory behavior makes me angry, Fiona, so you let it out.
Yes. But like I think for me, that sort of like weirdness that we sort of all knew about Neverland, just in somewhere in my mind, got sort of mixed up with the general weirdness about Michael Jackson, which was, the question of like the fact that he like changed skin colors and the fact that he like had all of this plastic surgery and like sort of that weirdness and got kind of like glommed onto that, which like those are two very different things. Like you can get all the plastic surgery that you want. Like that's, very much different from being a fucking sexual predator. But it was just amazing that it was like, oh yeah, this really did happen. And we kind of all knew about it. And we kind of just like didn't pay attention. So that was like the first thing that was like, holy shit. But then I do remember also like in like lodged in my brain somewhere were thoughts of like, what the fuck is wrong with these parents? And, you know, if you watch the Oprah special, like they both talk about how neither of them have really forgiven their parents. And like, I can completely understand why. And like, that's their thing. But I will say that watching the documentary did kind of like JP said, like it kind of did make me empathize with them a lot more because you see like how they were groomed too. And still they're the adults in the situation, but that power differential of like this mega pop star
chose you.
Yeah. So I believe, what did they say? Forgiveness is
it's not like a finish line that you cross. It's a road that you walk.
Thank you. It's a road that you take. That's the word. I took notes on it, actually. Forgiveness is a road that you take. Which
I thought that was really beautiful.
That was really beautiful. And then one of the parents said the guilt of letting him down is still there. Well, clearly, duh. But it's just, I think, like, while the ultimate is like to the parents, like, why did you let him sleep there? But then I feel like that's also just another cop out because at the end of the day, the blame is on the predator. Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I do think the parents have a part to play to protect their kids. Like I don't want to like put the like leave them, what is the expression even? Completely off the hook. But I do think that yes, like it's again like we very much have a tendency all the time to talk about what you could have done to avoid getting raped. Like what, you shouldn't have worn such a short skirt, etc. And that's kind of like a extension of that. Like, yeah, it's not the short skirt. It's the rapist who raped you, who chose to do that. It's Michael Jackson who chose to do these things.
Oh, and then to hit on what JP said about somebody in his circle, it's incredible to me that the people in Michael Jackson's circle who testified in court that they saw inappropriate things going on, then why the fuck didn't you stop and say something?
Because they're yes men. They're yes men. Like they, it's like, and I can't remember who said it, but there really aren't stars like that anymore. Like I think just in this day and age, it's impossible to fathom someone that famous and with that much clout and adoration behind them.
Oprah actually said it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it becomes, and again, not, I think as we've all clearly stated, by no means an excuse. It is all that the more hard to stand up to and say no to someone that transcends just being a human. And I think because of that, he clearly surrounded himself with people that would only yes him. I'm sure if people said no, they probably weren't there the next day.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, I think you can also extend, like, that's for certain a huge factor. But like, we all live in a culture of rape, just like in general. And so, like, look at Penn State, shout out Dan, look at the Catholic Church. Like, our priority as a culture is protecting the man. It like, our priority is not protecting the victims, the children, the men or the women who are being victimized. That is not the priority. And so it's not super surprising. Then you add to that all of that power and fame and prestige, and like it's kind of like a perfect storm, like a recipe for disaster. Well, that even at a smaller level, like we see the same things.
Well, and I think it's also to kind of go back to what we sort of circled around before. I think there's probably a large part of the population that just didn't want it to be true.
I think
that they just love this guy so much and could fold it into the weirdness of Michael Jackson and the fact that he never had a childhood and that's why he's so weird. And they couldn't let go the fact that like who he was and what his music was to accept that this was also true taints everything else.
I spoke to somebody last week before I watched this, and she said, I watched Leaving Neverland, but I have to say, like, I don't know if I believe the accusers, because why come out now after, you testified that you didn't, like, why now? And just very convenient because Michael Jackson and the estate and the money and this and that. And I think a large part of it is that Amanda is correct. You don't want to believe that somebody that you idolize that gave you just so much joy could be that bad of a person. Because I'm not going to lie, it sucks that now, I'm kind of sad because I loved the songs of his that came in my playlist that I played, and now I've got to take them out because I can't listen to them without like feeling like I want to puke. But I think that there's a lot of people out there that Amanda's right.
Yeah, no, I agree that people don't want it to be true, but like that type of comment of like, well, why would they only come forward now and blah, blah, blah. Again, like that's like 100% rape culture. And it's also like sort of surprising because in a society where like, I mean, the statistics, like, you can look on like the RAINN website or whatever. I don't know what the actual statistics are, but it's like just an insane amount of people who are abused in general in life, but also like as children. It's pretty overwhelming. So, I mean, for me, like somebody saying that is that person themselves, like, it's just, you're kind of like showing that like you don't really know what you're talking about. So like maybe like you're a lucky person that wasn't abused as a child, and that's great. But like you also then haven't really, I don't know, like have had any real empathy for people who have gone through that kind of thing to like look into it and understand why they might only be coming out about it now. And it just, I don't know, like it's disheartening because like we were saying, like with other examples of people in power and just like men in general, like, I mean, you just can't, like the whole time, like I couldn't help but think of like Brett Kavanaugh, who again, it's not the same thing, but it's still terrible. And the people who don't want to believe that. Right. And so we have like the way that Dr. Blasey Ford is being treated right now is very similar to the way that these men are being treated, which is to say they're, getting death threats and like all of this stuff. And meanwhile, people just want to be able to still go on and support, like their judge who, they might claim that like they believe the account of this person, but just everything except for the part about who actually was the perpetrator, right? Like that doesn't compute. And that's, so it's Shandy. Sort of disheartening because all of this stuff happened with Michael Jackson happened, kind of like not a long time ago now, but like, a while ago, and we're just seeing that like actually there hasn't really been any significant change. And so I just hope that people will watch it and kind of like come to understand things that maybe they don't want to look at because it's hard.
For what it's worth, I heard that Michael Jackson's estate actually provided calendars that had did rape Wade Robson.
Yeah, I hear he liked beer. Or I guess maybe it was wine.
It was wine.
It was wine. Yeah, I really like wine.
That argument always gets me. It's like I defy anyone to watch that documentary and tell me that those men are made it all up.
Right.
There's no way.
Why it is to the level of graphic. Why would you make that up?
So here's the what I heard, the counterpoint, because I said, why would they make it up? And it was, well, I mean, they could have just read they were there in court. They could have just read the court transcripts or heard the testimonies of the other people that sued him.
But again,
so they're just like repeating what they...
Right. Like even the best actor, I think, even the best actor can't make themselves break out in hives on command.
Yeah.
And to what end? To then like receive death threats? Like that's what you're doing when you come out about stuff like this.
Yep.
So that is the part where it's like anyone who says that is just kind of like themselves a hateful person who's contributing to rape culture and like maybe needs to take a step back and examine that. But like, yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next email, which is Elena's, because I'm sure we're going to have a lot more to touch off after this. And Elena says, hey, ladies, I watched Leaving Neverland. It was sickening and incredibly frustrating. I just can't understand how blind the parents were to the abuse. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I cannot imagine a scenario where it would make sense for her to share a bed with an adult night after night, even a family member. Do you think they just never imagined he would be as insane to do something with them in the same house? How could they ignore the allegations of the other boys and not put 2 and 2 together? Can you imagine being that hypnotized by fame that you could let something like this happen? Looking forward to your discussion. So let's, I guess, delve deeper into this. We touched upon it a little bit. So fame culture and letting them just share a bed even.
Well, and I think, Shandy, you pointed out on this already, you touched on this already, is the fact that, like, he wasn't just conditioning the children, he was conditioning the parents too. He made them feel special. He made them feel like
he gave them shopping sprees.
This celebrity that I admire reached out to me and thinks I'm an important and special person in their life. And that's, you know, like they were just as brainwashed in some respects.
And we've seen how today people can be brainwashed even. And like, you know, they said he spent hours on the phone with them. He bought one of them a house. He bought, you know.
Yeah.
Like he bought the parents off. But to say that he bought the parents off is also a crude way of characterizing the grooming. And it takes away really from just how predatorial.
Yeah.
Right. It was psychological more than it was
totally
financial.
Psychological. And like, I don't want to let the parents off the hook completely because like they were the parents, they were the adults in the room. It was their job to protect their children. But like, one of the things that I remember one of the moms saying, maybe both of them, I can't remember exactly, was that Michael like came to feel like one of her sons. So it was very much, he inserted himself into their life in such a way that even though he was in his 30s, he felt like a child, like a son to them. And they talk about a lot about how, like, you know, he just played games and he was the way that he was described as being, again, like an adult child, like very just childish and sort of concerned with, like, you know, the same kinds of things that like a 10-year-old boy would be concerned with. And so in that regard, if you do really come to see this person through this process of grooming and everything, you come to see this person as your kid. I mean, you would never tell your older daughter that she can't share a bed with your younger daughter when they're having, like, you know, a fun sleepover or whatever. So there is a part of me that, again, I don't want to let them off the hook, but like, there's a part of me that's like, that's maybe like a part of what's going on here, you know?
Yeah.
I understand.
Well, and I feel like a lot of, particularly the first part, maybe not so much in the second part, but I feel like I made the mental note several times. It's like those mothers, it felt like they were making a different documentary.
Yes.
Some of the things that they were saying, it's like, do they know what we're talking about?
Yes. Didn't he say in the Oprah special, Dan Reed, the director, that he filmed Wade and James over the course of, or like 2 days each or whatever, where they did their thing. Days, So he must have brought in the mothers later and talked to them, and, you know, they must have just given their side of the story without.
Right. Yeah, but it's like you hear there's still such like adoration in their voices in a lot of ways. It's like I think they still haven't really grasped what actually happened.
Right. And so I think like you can see like even with the guys, the way that the documentary starts out is very much in that same vein of the adoration and all of these things, even throughout almost all of the first like the first part, or like a considerable part of it. And then of course, like, their tone changes because they experienced all of these things firsthand. And so I think that because the mothers didn't experience those things firsthand in the same way, and like you said, they're still sort of grappling with it, then I think that's why we don't get as much. But it's like you can see that same sort of admiration in them. And it just, and I think that the director really did take all parties involved, like sort of through that, like from beginning to end. And so in the beginning, of course, it's going to be more of the good things. It's just that for the mothers, it was the good things for much, much longer because they didn't know for many more years. They didn't know that any of the other stuff was happening. So they have like this longer trajectory of time where everything was just great and Michael was great, etc. And then less of a time where they knew any of the bad stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have another email from Mike.
Okay, so Mike writes in, "Hello, broadcasters. I watched the 2 episodes of Leaving Neverland when they aired, and it is an incredibly intense viewing experience. The most difficult part was probably the last half of the 2nd episode, seeing the harsh effects the abuse had long after it ended. It was extremely difficult to understand how these parents ignored so many warning signs, but they are not alone. We've seen it over and over with the Catholic Church and many other groups where parents just get groomed or have willful ignorance, causing them to turn a blind eye. Hopefully, the more we have light shed on these crimes, the more easily people can recognize the signs of abuse and grooming. It's certainly a hard but worthwhile watch." Michael.
I agree with that.
I agree. Yeah.
Learn, because I believe that at the time this was all happening, it probably wasn't as mainstream, right? Looking for these signs of abuse and correct us if we're wrong, or me if I'm wrong. I was in college in what the second trial was when we were in college, right? 2004? Was that when it was?
I thought it was 2000.
2003 maybe? Because I believe that when I saw it on the screen, I was like, oh, I was in college then. Why don't I remember?
Huh.
I remember, but it was like this revisionist history that by the time Michael Jackson was making his comeback right before he died, it's like we had all but forgotten about that
was also
blip.
Another 6 or 7 years later.
Exactly. It was long enough time that the jury of public opinion had forgotten about it.
Right. So I just Googled it, and People versus Jackson was 2004 to 2005.
Okay.
See, never go up against the girl with her dates.
The dates are the one thing I have, okay?
Yeah, you're always going to be right. I shouldn't have challenged.
Yeah, so the first one was 1993, so we were officially too young. So that was
we were 9.
Yeah. And then I think for me personally, honestly, 2004, 2005, I was in France. I was not I didn't have a TV or a computer, so I was not paying attention to anything that was happening in the United States. Basically, it was the Bush years. I was not paying attention.
And I think we were, we were in college, so we were probably just doing college things, to be honest.
I do remember it.
I remember it well,
but
paying attention to it. I knew it was happening.
Yeah.
Do we have any more emails on this?
No, I think, that's it.
I think what really stood out to me about watching the whole documentary was it wasn't so much the child sexual abuse stuff, because again, we had all heard those rumors and kind of, in the back of our mind peripherally knew that was a thing without even really processing it. So when I was watching it, it was kind of like when you're spoiled on a movie or a book, I knew that was coming. What really got to me was, again, the grooming, the psychological part of the whole thing. To me, what really horrified and fascinated me at the same time was the psychology behind everything. The type of people that were preyed on, the grooming, the complicated nature between love, in quotes, and abuse. When James said that he'll be working on this for the rest of his life, and then, just certain quotes, or as they talked about in the Oprah special, him crying in the corner, just the manipulation really got me. And other quotes, just to kind of finish up, where James was he said I was his first sexual experience, and he would say that all the time. He's the biggest entertainer and a creative genius, and that creative genius thinks that you're special. What's not to like, right? And then, contrast that with Wade is then saying, there was nothing aggressive about it, nothing abrasive. I never felt scared or anything like that. It just didn't feel that strange. Michael told me this is how we show our love. And I liked the feeling that it was making him happy, that it was pleasing him. And all of those things are really hard to re-say and hard to listen to. But at the same time, I think that goes with, like Mike was just saying in his email, it's really important to recognize that kind of stuff. Because awareness, right? Not the, if you see something, say something, but like, if you think something is wrong.
Well, and it's recontextualizing what we think of as abuse. Like we think of abuse and it has to be painful or hurtful or violent. And this wasn't any of those things at the time. Like these kids didn't have the language, the understanding, the whatever to get that what was happening was wrong, because it actually felt good and they felt special. And it's like, how do you square those things that like, no, that's actually abuse.
He's making you feel special so he can keep using you. And I've done a lot of thinking about this. And I do think it's possible for somebody who is abusing you to have a fondness for you or an affection for you or care about you on some level, or where they don't want you to be like, you know, to die or hurt or something. Like they would cry if you died. But at the end of the day, it comes down to if they are still abusing you in whatever way they are doing it, whether it is physically or emotionally or psychologically or sexually, if they're still abusing you, that's not love.
Right.
No, it is not.
Like that's not love. That's not getting into a fight with somebody that you're, you know, dating or married to or in your family, and then having a slip of the tongue and being like, oh fuck, I shouldn't have said that. I'm so sorry. I love you. That's not that. This is like genuinely going after, preying upon you for something that makes them feel superior over you or dominance over you or better than you or asserting some kind of whatever over you for their own self. Like that's what that is. And they might care about you and they might think that they love you and they might love you in a way that, you know, they don't want you out of their life, but again, it's not real. It's not real because you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I don't want to go down like the wrong path here if I have interpreted it wrong, but the way that I've done a lot of thinking about this and, you know, just, I don't know, the psychology behind those who prey upon people who are weaker than them has really been on my mind a lot over the last 2 weeks since I watched this.
Yeah. And I think like what kind of stood out to me too. I mean, again, I mentioned Kavanaugh, it's just the importance of believing victims, and allowing them to come forward in order to like start their process of healing, but then also to hold people accountable and maybe not make them a Supreme Court justice, et cetera. Just, you know, just as an example, but, because like the cycle needs to be broken and like these people are broken. And that's kind of what they talked about. So they talked about a lot how what really kind of changed things for them was when they had kids of their own and then being able to see like those kids approaching the age at which they were abused and how that was really, you know, kind of a shock to the system. But I also don't think that it's a coincidence that they happen to be kind of in their 30s-ish, I'm assuming. I mean, I think like these things that happen to you when you're a child, you don't process them right away. You think you're fine. You blow through your 20s. And I know that like as a 30-something, I've done a lot of thinking back, reflection, and you see how things that happen to you when you're a kid have a lasting effect on your life.
Yeah.
And like, and pop up in these places that you wouldn't even expect. And so if you, and like, I'm lucky in that I was always believed and that was never a problem, but like, I can't even imagine, you know, how do you even begin to heal if you have the world against you and you see your abuser rewarded, for example.
Yeah.
So that was, for me, that was like my big takeaway was just sort of like we were talking about, there's the Michael of it all. And then there's just like the greater question of abuse and just, sort of like engaging with that part of it, I think, to see. And I think they did a really good job of also separating the two, because both things are present, but like Michael Jackson didn't happen in a vacuum. Like, it's part of a greater cultural apparatus, and we need to talk about it and be able to confront these things if that cycle is going to be broken. But again, like, we have to also, as a society, hold people accountable.
Yeah, we do.
And that's tough, especially if the abuser is an idol or a family member or something. Like, it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that all the thoughts that I had over the last 2 weeks, I could articulate them better. I hope that Leaving Neverland opens a greater dialogue in the world about the complicated truth behind abusive relationships of all sorts.
Mm-hmm.
And I say complicated truth because I believe it was James or Wade, one of them, or maybe Oprah, one of them said it in the special, and I was like, wow, that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. Where do we go from here?
Let's take our ad break / pee break.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Where do we go from here? We go to an ad break.
We go to
Okay, cool. All right, and we're back. And we just all looked at our clocks and the time and realized that it's getting a little bit late. So we are going to move right along and see what else we get to over the next couple of minutes. So I think we are going to kick off our post Leaving Neverland with some That's What She Said.
All right, so it's chugging right along. It's Tuesday.
I don't know if either of you saw it.
Seemed like the wood ones are giving you trouble.
Not everything is out yet.
No. It came out in 2004 because it definitely was the thing that came up when I was researching.
Wow, oh my God. It's like I just said that like 5 minutes ago. They all kind of blend together.
Your body got too much and wants more.
I am really excited to see it.
It is amazing what the body is capable of and how much you can come back.
You just got to bring it home now.
There's 3 of them. We've done 2.
I don't really do a ton either.
This is going off really, really well.
I want to have both.
It doesn't make me nauseous. It just makes me... Wait, that was a total coincidence, by the way.
Too thin? It's thick and creamy.
I'm just doing this for Matt.
I was finished with it on Thursday night.
I can stay awake for 15 more minutes. Let's do this.
And then he wanted more.
Look what you started.
Maybe we'll have to do a round 2.
Take a breath. Don't rush back into it.
I was going to try to watch that.
Every time it pops up, it gives me joy.
That's a good one.
I feel like the last few were kind of like a short story.
Yeah, they all kind of worked well together. Yeah.
Butter she-mails. All right, so we have a lot of emails this week and voicemails. For the sake of time, we're not going to be able to get to all of them right now, but let's see what we can do. Our first email is from Mr. David Gott.
All right, dear Amanda, Shandy, and Colleen.
Whoa. Sound excited.
Sorry. I was just on mute because I was eating some dinner.
I'm sorry.
So I quickly unmuted. No. It's all. I mean, I shouldn't be eating during the podcast, although that is kind of one of our traits.
Yeah.
Okay. So Gott writes in Honorary Broads. Dear Amanda, Shandy, and Colleen, I was shocked and just a tad surprised by Michael's reaction to my concerns about his slightly unseemingly Honorary Broad status campaign. On hearing his argument, my first thought was, how could I have missed something so obvious? If honorary broad status was in fact making a person an honorary female, well, then I would just be totally wrong. In my head, the universe was turned upside down. Dogs were hanging out with cats. Dennis was winning at Cards Against Humanity.
Ooh, sick burn.
Oh my God.
I must say that his attempt to redirect the discussion was exceptionally clever. I guess it is a normal reaction for men to obfuscate the issue when they are called out for their male privilege. I have probably done so myself a time or two.
Oh, shit, son.
So, I decided to do my research. Please turn your attention to the broadcast episode 3.8, the 98th installment. This episode is entitled The Inclusive Cool Kids Table.
That's great.
At 1 hour, 21 minutes, and 45 seconds in that episode, Shandy said that the three of you were like hanging out at the cool kids table, which Amanda then said it was the inclusive cool kids table. Perhaps play a short clip from the episode?
Well, your wish is my command.
It's true.
Yeah. We're the ones that you walk into and you think we're lame, but we're not lame because we're actually super funny.
Who thinks we're lame?
I would say we're actually kind of like the people sitting at the cool kids table. And the other people walk in and they like want to sit at the cool kids table. That's how I conceptualize us anyway.
Okay, well, I have never conceptualized myself in the cool kids table ever in my life. And Amanda,
I don't think I ever sat at the cool kids table. This is great. This is a new experience for me.
Woo!
Yeah.
The cool kids table episode title: The Cool Kids Table.
Yes.
Welcome.
But we're an inclusive cool kids table.
Oh, totally.
Like we leave plenty of room. We don't like stick our feet out and trip anyone as they walk by.
Okay.
Yes. But seriously, like think of it. Like Jay tries to, make his way on the podcast from time to time. Matt's practically a broadcaster.
Matt's a fourth broad.
Yep.
I gotta say.
Well, no, it's Jay's the fourth broad. Matt's the fifth broad.
But
we'll
we have
we'll
Matt.
work out the hierarchy later.
Well, no, Matt has to be the fifth broad because he's also the 5th of May, so he's got to be the 5th of broad.
I feel like that should come with like a crest.
Oh my God. Okay, maybe Jacob can make Matt a pin that says the 5th of broad.
Oh my God, I love it.
Okay, speaking of, we really need to get Jacob on making Matt a pin that says the 5th of broad.
Yeah, that was a great idea.
Wow.
That was lovely.
That was great.
All right. God goes on to say that after some back and forth, Shandy talked about how many people wanted to hang out with the broadcasters. She then said Matt was practically the 4th broadcaster, yada, yada, yada. Jay was named the 4th broadcaster and Matt the 5th of broad. Some episode later, Brian was named the 6th broad. This numbering infers that Shandy, Colleen, and Amanda were the first 3. I believe that confirms my thoughts that honorary broad status was, in fact, an honorary broadcaster, thus rendering Michael's clever counter-argument both silly and moot. There is only one possible flaw in my logic. Neither I nor Michael make the rules, so we must now leave it to the 3 of you to decide if there should be female honorary broads. Amanda said last week that broad is not an identifier, but rather a state of mind. Seems just about perfect to me. So until this is all resolved in Raleigh, your chess move, Mike. Sincerely, Got.
Oh, sir.
When it comes to men playing games, I'm okay with it when it's like this and benefits us.
Yep.
Yep.
And we don't even have to pronounce ourselves on the issue because I really want to see what Mike's going to say next week.
I know, right?
Yeah, I'm just enjoying this very intelligently worded discourse.
I know. And as Got pointed out, reminder, the broads are going to conference and we will figure it out and give our decision during our live show in May.
Definitely.
Yes.
I do think the big takeaway from this, though, is to reference back to Gott's email. we really are the cool kids table and everyone just wants to hang out with us.
Oh my God, yes.
I feel very validated and vindicated and all the good feelings.
Good times. I'm very excited to see where this goes next.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we all just looked at the time, and it's just about midnight. We're going to put a pin in the feedback for right now and continue it next week. Also, next week, we're going to have a discussion on Russian Doll. We won't be recording the following week since Shandy will be on spring break. Spring break! Yeah! So next week, we will have plenty of time for Russian Doll. We'll have plenty of time for all of our feedback that we've got saved up. And more peacocking emails. So it's gonna be a wonderful end of March / beginning of April. But on that note, if you are a patron, thank you so much for supporting us. We really appreciate it. If you'd like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/jayandjack, or you can go to jayandjack.com, click on the Become a Patron link on the top corner. Thank you, though, for listening in general, whether you are a patron or not. I feel like we don't thank the listeners enough, but we do really appreciate it. Like, every week we get new emails. We've never had a week without feedback, and not to get sentimental or anything, I really consider myself to be incredibly lucky to get to podcast with two amazing women every week and have amazing people that listen and send feedback. Like, no matter what happens in life, like, this has been a wonderful, and we talked about this, earlier, this has been a wonderful, like, anchor for me, and I appreciate each and every single one of you, so thank you.
Here. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd like to shop through the Amazon affiliates link, you can go to jayandjack.com/Amazon, all lowercase letters. If you want to hit up the store, get your Team Science Team Universe mug, your broadcast sticker. If you wanted to check us out on Instagram, if you go to Instagram, we are at the Broadcasters 3, and I think our Instagram is super fun. Like, I look forward to it, and really the highest praise that we can get right now is that Jay actually really looks forward to our Instagram post. And
nice.
Yeah. Oh, you can email us, thebroadcaster3@gmail.com. I think that's about it. A special thank you to the patrons that support us at a certain level, and that would be The Drake, Ed the Creepy Mailman, Tack from Tokyo, Eckhart Rigner, Maggie the Magnificent, and Joanne with a Plan. Thank you all very much. Again, if you'd like to support us, you can go to patreon.com/jayandjack. That's all I have right now. Stay tuned next week for me coming off of being on anesthesia for a little while. It's going to be great. Anybody else have anything?
Nope.
All right, cool. Well, on that note, thanks everybody for joining us. My name is Colleen.
My name is Amanda.
And I'm Shandy.
Peace out, everybody. Have a great week.
Goodbye.
Bye.